Good evening, one and all, to a new academic year of BUSR. It is winter 2025, and we are starting off our season at the Temple of Speed in Italy. It's Monza time. My name is RW Dragon, joined here by Max Ring. It's a pleasure to have you on the BUSR broadcast for what is going to be an absolutely epic season to start off, well, the new academic year.
Yeah, it certainly is. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be here for BUSR. And it's going to be quite an exciting season coming up ahead of us, of course. Not only are we here at Monza this evening, we do have some rather quick drivers in our calibers, some making their debut. And of course, we do have reigning champion Ben Mills, but he does have the likes of Liam Doherty, Croesus Pilakoris, and also Seth Martin, to name a few, to potentially challenge that title defense. And it should be a rather fun evening as well.
Absolutely. So, as I said, kicking off in Monza, but it's the first of 8 rounds for these drivers to get to fight through and fight for this championship. Fumbling over my words is a great way to start the season. But through 8 rounds, of course, one of them is going to be a drop round. One of the rounds will not count towards their score. That's going to be their lowest position. So if you get a DNF here, maybe the turn 1 incident, you had one of those at Kota today. If you have a turn 1 incident today, doesn't matter. Look forward to next week in Mexico to try and fight back into the championship. But of course, you'll be hoping to have good races throughout the entire season. But let's go back and talk about summer a bit. Unfortunately, it was something that I missed out on. And I think, Max, you were probably unable to watch some of it as well. But as a quick sort of spectators recap, watching the points tallies over a few weeks, we, of course, had Cameron Searle, the guy who ran the league the past 2 seasons before it. Of course, got 7 out of 8 wins, only dropped in Baku because he, dropped into a wall in Baku. So he, unfortunately, wasn't going to be able to retain his crown, but that left the door open for Ben Mills to pick up the crown, sit on the throne, and just have a nice, relaxing time until, well, this time in October, where his championship defense starts.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, it just shows how consistency is key. And even if you do win a majority of the races, if someone finishes second place, say this season that happens, someone wins all but 2 races, and then the person who's finished second in all those races ends up winning those ones, it could mean the championship can completely switch. And all it takes is that consistency. It's a real big talking point in terms of fighting for championships. Is consistency is key. You can't win a championship by winning a race, then not scoring. It just doesn't work like that. So you just got to make sure that you're keeping on your A game, at least scoring podiums every race if you want to be in that title picture. And you just want to be leading by example and just pushing from the front.
It's a fantastic point you make. That reminds me of the first season I started casting in BUSR was literally last winter. It was Joe versus Cameron throughout that entire season. Joe was sort of just took the lead, got his nose ahead, coming first, second. It's that sort of pattern between himself and Cameron. It was just at the end. Cameron kicked on, got 5 wins out of the 8. Joe only got 3. So even with consistency, you can have that title fight, you can have that battle, but in the end, getting a few more wins than your opponent and maintaining that consistency throughout the low points in your season is going to be absolutely vital for all of these guys in 8 rounds to make sure you have, 7 good finishes and one where you can just sort of go, all right, throw away, let's get back on target for the next one. So in other news as well, I think I'll be amiss to not bring up Newt having a good time in the F2 fun season. I feel like he's running around Discord with the F2 champion tag. I'll give him a little nod. He did have some very good races in there, but of course, F2 cars in F1 24 are going to be very different to the F1 25s. But even then, pre-game lobby is, as it were, the ones that I like to join in and just mess around in and try and keep up with these guys, but inevitably end up 4 seconds off the pace. These guys are putting in some good lap times as we look ahead to quali during our practice rounds. 117, 118 was sort of around the pole time. And Max, what is your reaction to that? Is a little bit of data for you to think about?
Yeah, that's probably where I was expecting the time to be, about that low 1 minute 18 to a high 17 as the pole. It's really, it's a quick circuit, of course. A majority of this circuit at full throttle, and your real points of making up that time is through the middle sector. So that's where these drivers have to be on their A game. Heading into the Della Rossi chicane, the two Lesmos, you got to be on the limit through those, because if you just hold back ever so slightly, especially through the Lesmos, you just bleed time all the way down to Ascari in the beginning of Sector 3. So this circuit, even though it's quite simple in the fact that there is majority full throttle, it rewards confidence, it rewards bravery, and you've got to be on that limit the whole time. It may sound quite simple on a quali lap, but when you're so close to just dipping a tyre into the gravel or just overstepping the mark on the track limits ever so slightly, it's difficult to do that. So you've got to understand your setup and the car to make sure that you can be at your full confidence and push to that very edge.
It's just like Austria as a track, those short circuits. It's all about being precise. It's all about the tiny little margins between what gets you pole and what gets you 20th. And everyone will be experiencing that today as we go around this Monza circuit. Quali coming up soon, so be on the lookout for the aforementioned 1 minute 17s, 1 minute 18s. As we look into this, I think before we get the quali scene up, what is your prediction? This season is going to be a massive one for Ben Mills. He wants to defend his title from the summer. Can he do it, or do we have not exactly a dark horse, but someone new coming to try and claim that crown?
Yeah, we definitely do have someone new to try and claim that crown. I think Chris's sorry, is going to be certainly someone who can threaten Ben Mills and threaten that title. But of course, it's still a long season ahead. You could have strong circuits, or this calendar could be completely made up of circuits you're weaker at, and that could be potentially where Ben Mills falters, or someone else on the grid who's looking to challenge, and we know they have the pace, but they're just not able to get it over the line. Say Newt, for example. This might just be a bunch of their poorer circuits, and they're not able to challenge. So it all depends on how confident they are, and how, of course, you've got to get your foot running. You've got to get that ball rolling from this get-go and make sure you're in that battle. But of course, it's all just about how Ben can deal with that pressure of being the reigning champ. Of course, there's a little bit more pressure on your shoulders as you've got to try and defend that. And for everybody else, they've got the pressure of, especially if Ben Mills is behind them or just in front of them, to show what they're made of and be able to attack the reigning champ.
Just as we talked about with tracks, the short tracks, it's about the barest of margins. It's going to be the exact same thing with, let's be honest, a short season. The entire thing, only 8 races long, a couple of sprints. Those barest of margins will decide who will be the champion of BUSR. As here we get our first look at quali, get the first look at the track. And quite a few people going out for early runs. As let's start off with Ender Epic to get this season going in that lovely pink and blue Alpine, heading down into the first chicane. Quite famous for incidents galore. Hamilton and Verstappen back in 2021 that led to Ricciardo winning. He never left. Well, until he left with the McLaren team, as he heads around down towards the second chicane here, both with instance as well. Carlos Sainz, I remember him heading into the gravel that he's on that left there, I think in 2022 during the sprint race. As we head into the Lesmos as well, dropping down into 5th gear. You can take that into 6th, but you definitely need to drop into 5th at least here in the second half of the Lesmos. Out towards Ascari down this long straight. DRS open, 8th gear. You really want to use battery to try and get as much pace as you can. Going a little bit low on the gearing. I would probably say you want to stay in about 5th, maybe 6th tops, heading into Ascari and outwards. Down towards the famous Parabolica corners. Let's be honest, this entire Monza circuit is famous for its history, its heritage on the F1 calendar. And for the BUSR season, it starts with Ender Epic. It starts with a 119.5 at Dexter coming in 119.2, as some of the fastest drivers will start put some times in immediately. A 1 minute 18.2 takes the top spot at the moment.
Yeah, it certainly does. Nicely done there from El Cone. Here comes Alpha. A few of these drivers seem to be on the intermediate compounder tyres, just really getting... a feel for the circuit and of course the track as well. Make sure they're able to, of course, get an understanding of their setup and equipment. But of course, Elcone is still at the top. GM going into second place. Tadpole going to be coming up to the line. What's it going to be for his intermediate lap time of 22.3? This is a strategy I see quite often in these types of leagues, where on the first runs here, they go for a bit of a different strategy. Nedso up to fourth, and they go for those intermediates, save a set of the soft tyres for the race. And it just opens up a bit more of a different dynamic, especially if someone does all 4 sets of their softs or 3 sets of their softs at the beginning. It leaves them, if there's a late safety car, quite short. And for someone, say, like a Funderino or a Luke Sawyer, who have just done this intermediate lap time, if there's a late safety car, they're going to be on fresh softs. They're going to fly all the way to the top if they're able to get a good launch from that.
I should clarify as well, we are running the Creator Series extra point for Inter's pole throughout this season as well, including 2 points for pole position going into the race. So there's a little bit of more method to the madness for Thunderino, looking to be the first one to technically score a point in this season with that 1 point given, but that is only in the first 6 minutes of qualifying, as well as, of course, not being given out if it is a wet qualifying, as of course Inters will be required in that situation anyway. So there we go, the first set of lap times being pushed through by all these drivers. Elcone at the moment currently still on top. I believe that might be our good friend Last Gen Newt, with the 1 minute 18 using a funny nickname. Either that or it's Professor Trousers. I believe that one of the 2 McLarens is Last Gen Newt, and I think it is the 1 minute 18.2 driver at the moment on provisional pole. Oh wait, no, Last Gen Newt's in the kicks hour. I'm daft. Where's my list? So I swear, Last Gen Newt was definitely talking about being in McLaren earlier, so he's absolutely bamboozled me. Where he's been. It's a new season. It's a new season. I'm getting back into it.
Shake it off the rust. Shake it off the rust before we get into things. Sport Mad has gone purple in that middle sector. So let's see what the Ferrari driver can do heading down into the parabolic. And now, of course, this is on soft tyres. So this is definitely going to be battling at the front of the field. Be trying to hunt down on Elcone's lap time. I'm expecting this to potentially just separate Ender Epic and GM. Up to the line we go now. And actually, no, does go to that provisional front row. Second fastest from Sport Mad on 18.4. 2 tenths shy of Elcone. And this now makes things a little bit more interesting. Of course, track evolution's got to play a big part as well in this session. Of course, as more cars go around, more grip is able to be developed onto the track surface, and we'll see faster lap times over the course of the next 10 minutes and 50 seconds. And it's going to be all about who comes out onto the circuit last, and that could be the difference between pole position and potentially missing out by a few thousandths of a second.
Should also say that is most likely Jordan Pinnock in that P1 car at the moment after my little mess up with Last Gen Newt. He's currently still in 9th. He's definitely got a better lap in him. Come on, lads. They're currently sitting about the time that I was getting towards the end of qualifying during my time, but I think that might have been all the Inter drivers that are currently sitting in the 121s. So it's good to know that if those guys were on Inters, they'll still possibly be faster than me on softs. So let's take a look. Who do we have about to start their laps or about to put a lap time in? Thomas and Ali, both hopefully about to set their first lap times. But you know what? Let's hop on board with Doherty. Max's pick as the one that could be taking on Ben for this entire championship. Looking to take it all as one of the new drivers on the grid as he heads through past turn 1 around the corner towards the second chicane here.
Yeah, let's see what
three going in third gear, going quite low in the gearing, but gets out quite well in towards Parabolica, taking it in 6th. That's some good driving there to stay on the road down to 5th. That's a good set of Parabolicas in terms of the gear shifting. And yes, I did watch a Brendan Lee video before it. It's called Research, guys.
Oh, gotta love Brendan Lee.
It's good videos, good videos. It's definitely improved my personal driving and definitely given me a lot of insight on the circuits. There's a bit of behind the scenes for what I do for research. A few laps of the track, a little bit of Brendan Lee, and job done. As Liam's got through Ascari quite well here through Parabolica down towards the start-finish line. Currently in P16, looks to be flying up the rankings, but only up into P2 as Ben Mills, the champion-elect, as it were, 1 minute 18.1. Got a 1 minute 17 in the practice before, but with a more packed track, it'll be more difficult as Luke Sawyer decides that it's time for Mercedes to put it on pole. 1 minute 18.1. As not only is there going to be a Drivers' Championship, there is going to be team play involved with a Constructors' Championship for all these drivers too. So it's going to be great to see your teammate get the provisional pole as much as you want to be up there as well.
Certainly was. Thunderinho now goes top. He's on to an 18-0. That's Creases Pilacoris as well. That's just his name over on Steam. Thunderinho taking an absolutely beautiful opening tour on those soft compounded tyres. Dexter Morgan is up by a tenth of a second. GM just starting his next attempt. I think that was one of the Mercedes just heading up to the start finish line. I think that was Nedso moving himself up into 12th fastest. Yes, it was, as he's on an 18.7 currently. But Thunderinho, he currently sits on the top. But here comes Elcone to the line. Jordan Pinnock, where can he go? Stays 4th fastest. Found half a tenth on the lap, but it wasn't enough to find any sort of improvement in position. And he stays in that 4th place. Of course, Doherty going to be coming into pit lane. All these drivers really going to be coming into the pit lane now. It's set from the likes of Dexter Morgan and GM. And of course, we also have Sportmad on an out lap too. Dexter stays 15th. I think he might have invalidated that lap. So it's all eyes to his teammate now, who currently lies 16th fastest on a 19.1 and is up by 2.5 tenths in the middle sector.
Good lap times being put in as GMTU FC is looking to climb up the rankings as well. Currently the two Haas drivers together on the grid, 16th and 17th on the grid. Without any times in, Wooly has put in a time as well. The two Williams only 3 places apart, with him on 1 minute 18. It's down to the start-finish straight. GMTU FC takes 3 tenths off, but that only gets up to P16. There's another lap. Oh, I'm not sure if he'll be taking another one or just heading back into the pit lane, as Nedso does decide to opt for the pit lane. New tyres. So we are starting to head towards the final few runs for all of these drivers, getting to the pit lane, getting the fresh tyres on, and just waiting for the track to be a bit more free, as Professor Trousers heading in 121.4 at the moment, currently P20 on a track. But the other McLaren, the Papaya of Elcone, P4 at the moment as he heads into the pit lane as we head towards the last 5 minutes of qualifying for the first round of BUSR Winter 2025.
We certainly do. Sportmad coming into pit lane. So not happy with the lap time he's just done. And it seems we have a few more drivers out onto the circuit. Tadpole seems to be coming into the pit lane as well. 1 minute 27 currently. So I think he's aborted this lap. And yes, you can see he is in none and just derating slightly as he elects to go to the right-hand side of the bollard and into the pits. We have the likes of Liam Doherty out on the circuit. Last Gen Newt as well. Also, just making their way on their outlap, and here comes provisional poleman Thunderinho, who's just under a tenth clear of Luke Sawyer for that pole position as we got 5 minutes to go. Coming out rather early for this next attempt, but due to how short the lap is, I think he could potentially, if he wanted to, do a lap, come back in and then go again. But still, it's going to be very interesting indeed with how close, especially it is between that top 4. Just over a tenth and a half separating that top 4. And Ben Mills, the reigning champion, is looking to try and take pole position for the first race of the season and start his title defence with a bang.
Yeah, stamp of authority early, I think, is what Ben Mills is thinking. He's still in what is a fantastic position around this Monza circuit, being in P3, not much traffic in front of you, heading down into what is usually a chaotic turn 1 as he starts his lap. Let's follow him around on what could be maybe his penultimate fast lap around this Monza circuit, known as the Temple of Speed. But at the moment, Ben Mills has been just slightly short on it by about 1.2 tenths of a second. So he's heading down towards the second chicane, heading through. Get some good pace there. It's into Sector 2. What do we have around Lesmos? Through the first, through the second, heading down towards the next challenge, going to be the Ascari chicane. There's Ben Mills. What sort of time do we have here? 3/10 being taken off his time at the moment. I was just waiting for that sector time to come through. What sort of challenges await as he comes right towards Parabolica? The last chance that you can really lose time around this Monza circuit. Will Ben Mills drop any? 3/10 up. That'll put him into the 117s as it stands. Heading down towards the line. What time will it be? 117.8. A thunderous start to the season, possibly, for Ben Mills. He could come back to the pit lane. I wonder what his tactic's going to be now as the race at the moment. What are you thinking? 2-stop? 1-stop if they're treating their tyres nicely? What sort of role could an extra set of softs play in an overall race or 50% length race for all these drivers? Do you want to use it now to try and get that lap time that could set you up on pole? Or do you leave it and maybe have a thunderous time if there is a safety car that comes out late in the race?
Yeah, I think the 1-stop is definitely the way to go here at Monza. You'll just lose too much time on that 2-stop. It's not too abrasive on those tyres compared to other circuits, and you can take at least the mediums to around about a lap 11, lap 12, swap onto a set of the hard compounded tyres, and then go all the way to the end of the race. If you're doing the medium hard strategy, if you're doing the hard medium, you're talking potentially around a lap 16 switch to those medium compounded tyres. We've got Alpha now heading round on his lap time, and saving that set of softs could be crucial if it's very much 5 laps to go per se in that final part of the race, if there is a late safety car and some late drama unfolds. But that's the risk you do take by not doing that extra run. You put a little bit more pressure on your shoulders, and it's a run where you could have found some time.
Well, Ben Mills is retired.
Mills has retired. I think that's because he's not got enough time to go back round and do another attempt. As Sportmad comes to the line, where can he go? Up to 4th fastest, second row of the grid. So if there's anything to go by, there is some huge track evolution out there so far.
It's quite interesting with the 1-stop versus 2-stop debate, because sitting in a lobby with these guys beforehand, you get to sort of have a little preview of what they're thinking, they discuss plans. It's far more open than what I'd imagine the usual F1 paddock to be like when you're in those sort of practice sessions. And Ginka getting a huge little toe down towards Ascari. But they actually are discussing 2-stop. They are thinking about it and considering the advantage of it, which is why I thought, oh, well, I'll bring it up with Max. He knows a little bit more about strategy. He's got a little bit more experience than I do. Like, probably the entire lobby itself, but yeah, there's little bits of information beforehand with the mindset. Where are they thinking is in terms of where they're going to place in through qualifying, as Thunderino is not gaining in the first sector. We did see briefly for a moment, I think it was Luke Sawyer having a little bit of a gain through the sectors. El Cone also having a slight gain on time. Unfortunately, I think it's just dropped a 10th through the lap. A little tank slapper heading through Ascari. Manages to hold, not Ascari, I should say that was the first chicane. But maybe that is going to be the end of, well, El Cone or Jordan's time going for pole. So I think that tank slapper has really taken the wind out of his sails. At the moment, Ben Mills has retired, but unfortunately, it's not for good news. Luke is through and takes pole. Ben will still be on the front row, but the 2 points for pole position could be going to him as Thunderino. You switch back to him. The cutaway gag, he's in the wall, and that will be the end of his qualifying as well. He sits P3. as Josh Woolley sits at P4. The Williams starting off the season, both of them in the front two rows as it stands. Elcone can't gain any time. Was very close to his initial time that got him P7. As the last few laps come in, looks like our current grid, our provisional grid, is forming quite nicely in front of us.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. And for Luke Sawyer, he will take pole position here in round one at the temple of speed, just pipping Ben Mills by around about half a tenth of a second. And Thunderino, who's up by a tenth, so he could potentially put a threat in for the front row of the grid at the very least. But super close, especially in that top seven. Not much separating those 7 cars. Around about 0.3 of a second. Around a circuit like Monza, that is very, very difficult to find, but still something we need to be looking out for heading into the race, is just how close these guys are. And of course, with it being majoritively flat out, we're going to have huge DRS trains probably spanning the whole field.
Well, I think last gen Newt, when I was talking to him before, he promised me no DRS trains, but if that's going to be true, then he's going to have some... we're gonna have a little talking to with him. But in terms of this Monza circuit, I talked about it at the start of the broadcast, that turn one, just try and get through there. It's just like Monaco turn one, no heroics in Sandoval, no heroics in Monza turn one, please. Keep it safe, keep it clean. And I think for the guys on the front row of the grid, start off your season with the DNF. It puts so much pressure on the other 7 rounds that you have to get through to try and make up for that. It is going to be a drop round. It is going to be sort of a round that you sort of go, all right, I guess I'm using this early. But the amount of pressure it then puts on you to just perform the rest of the season, week in, week out, if you are aiming for the championship, that is going to be a lot on your shoulders. And I'm not sure how many of these drivers are going to be ready for that with what could be their first BUSR championship fight.
Yeah, it certainly is. Of course, you want to, as I mentioned earlier, you want to get that ball rolling. You want to be able to be in that fight from the get-go, from that opening round. And if you, as you mentioned, use that drop round in the opening event, it just means you've got to be perfect for the rest of the season. And not really anybody can be perfect for an entire rest of the season because of how different these circuits are, the strengths and weaknesses of different drivers. And of course, with it all being an equal cars, it's a very equal championship. Anybody could take any of the rounds. All it takes is a little master stroke of luck, maybe a safety car here, or it's just a circuit they're genuinely good at compared to the rest, where we could see someone who's not really been up there all season long be fighting at the front, and then you can't afford to have that drop round in round one if those incidents do occur. And of course, you're then being put on the back foot because you've not scored good points in that race. So it's all going to be about if they can cope with that pressure. And even with the pressure of having that drop round still in hand, you still want it to be a strong result to keep that mentality and the consistency up in your hands.
Not only that, but throughout the season, we are going to have those equalizer tracks in a way. We are going to have Silverstone reversed. We are going to have 2 sprint race rounds that will going to be a few extra points for some of these challenges to try and pick up and take away from the leaders. We have got 5 red lights and instantly away we go. Luke Sawyer looking to keep hold of that advantage going into turn 1, as already you see a bit of debris coming off of cars. Ben Mills on the inside gets into turn 1, gets ahead. Luke Sawyer drops back down. And at the moment, from the start, turn 1 has provided quite a bit of entertainment, but it's more about the straight that started everything off. Ben Mills into the lead, Thunderino into P2, Luke Sawyer P3, Josh has dropped a place or 2 as Liam Doherty up to P4 as chaos ensues further down the grid as Alpha, Sportmad, those guys having battles, and a huge crash in the background of the second chicane. My goodness, it looks like quite a few drivers going to be thinking about the consequences of taking a drop round early. In terms of the rest of this season, it is still yellow flags, it's still caution, but it seems like everyone's gotten away and there is no safety car early on at Monza.
No, it doesn't seem so. It's Alpha around the outside for Ascari. That's a bold and beautiful move we've just seen from the V-Carb as he makes his way past Sportmad there in the Ferrari, who's now under attack from El Konu, who's dropped down a few places in his McLaren. Of course, started 7th, now squabbling over that 7th place and was behind that Ferrari. So as we now head through Parabolica, around the outside goes the McLaren. Has he got the run he needs off the corner? It certainly seems so that he's got that launch as we now make our way down into the first chicane. Looking to the inside as well is going to be Thomas as well on Alpha. We're going to be potentially nearly 3 wide into that first chicane. Thomas deep on the brakes, nearly into the side of El Cone. They're still somehow side by side on the exit of the corner. So Ferrari getting a little bit loose. That's CT08 as we now see, of course, these 3 of Alpha, Thomas and El Cone squabbling away through the Curva Grande and into the Della Roggia chicane. Who's going to come out on top in this freeway squabble? Is it going to be Thomas? Yes, it is. Look at that through the Della Roggia. Absolutely perfectly done. And now El Cone's under attack from Alpha into the first Lesmo, and he's got that move done. Cone, who fought his way up into 7th place, unfortunately fell back down to 9th, and he's been unravelled in the span of 2 corners.
Yellow flag in sector 2. I believe that's one of the Hasses has spun around, has let everyone pass by. That's Dexter Morgan just waiting for everyone to get past safely. We've now sort of split in half. Well, not even halves. We got the top 6 who are currently running away in that first DRS train. Then we got a next group of drivers. There's a fight going on down the grid with
safety car.
Oh, virtual safety car. There it is. So that will neutralize the race a little bit. Is the classic term that is used all over F1 for what the virtual safety car does. Takes away a bit of the speed. Everyone just waiting for the release to come as one Ferrari making an early stop. CT08. I think that might be front wing damage. There it is. Off comes front wing. And of course is immediately replaced by a new one. Of course the game glitching out there. Get rid of the front wing. And of course they've got a second front wing below it. Ferrari strategy going crazy there. As CT08 released out into P19 with Professor Trousers. Also early pit stop required for him as well, with a virtual safety car still going on.
Yeah, I think Professor Trousers there was the cause of that virtual safety car. I saw him heading down into Parabolica without a front wing. So potentially made a mistake at the start. Ascari is Jinka now gets the drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car. The one thing you don't want to do. And Luke Sawyer has got a perfect exit from that virtual safety car and is now side by side with Thunderini. There's contact made into Ascari. Somehow both were able to hold onto their cars into that chicane. And it's Thunderini who just comes out on top. Thomas has been overtaken by Alpha as well after all this. It seems that some drivers were able to time that virtual safety car restart to absolute perfection and be able to really get the jump on the ones around them further back. There's going to be Tadbol versus El Cone, who's just falling backwards in this race. Cone is having an absolutely disastrous opening 4 tours of this circuit as we now make our way down into turn 1. Will Thomas be putting the V-Carb under pressure, or is he going to be under attack from the Ferrari? It's 3 wide as we head down into that first chicane. That is Sportman onto the grass before we hit into the braking zone. Somehow able to keep the car under control and get it onto the brakes as we exit out that first chicane into the Curva Grande. It's as it were, but Sportmad putting the Alpha all under some pressure.
Some sensational racing. This is the quality of this new generation of BUSR drivers coming into it. We are having epic battles throughout the grid, as that is a slow chicane there from Sportmad that has just invited the 2 drivers behind him back into a battle again. They're trying to build that DRS. You're trying to gap the drivers behind, give yourself a little break and split up this set of DRS trains a little bit more, but it's not quite happening for any of these drivers at the moment. That gap between Last Gen Newton Thomas growing even further. It was about 3 seconds last lap. It's now up to 4, and you're already defining the championship contenders in that top 6. If Last Gen Newton and Josh have to have a drop round of P5 or P6, I think you take that. I think you're quite happy to sort of say my worst position in this season was 6th. And the rest of the time you end up above it, that is going to be what makes a championship contender for those drivers. Of course, it is slightly different point system to what F1 is in real life. It's 50 points for the winner and 2 points extra for the fastest lap, as well as thinking about that 2 points for the pole position, 1 minute for Inter's pole. There are plenty of points available for drivers at every point in the season, as fastest laps are being chucked in by every driver up and down the grid. The CTOA is the current holder of the purple clock next to his name.
Certainly is, and of course, talking about those pole position points, we have Fundarinho and Luke Sawyer have already picked up points this season. Of course, Fundarinho with the intermediate pole and Luke Sawyer with the overall pole in the opening round of the season. They're starting to break away ever so slightly from the Doherty. You can see that gap just over 7/10 of a second. It's slowly building to that Aston Martin behind. But the issue, of course, these guys have, especially the likes of Doherty and Woolley and also last gen new, is the fact that they're having to brake so much earlier than the cars in front, because that congestion, especially into these chicanes, the congestion that happens, it means that everybody has to brake slightly earlier and earlier, and that's where Thomas, especially in that middle sector, could potentially start to bring that gap back down, as Fundarinho looked for a move, wasn't able to get it done into the first 2 corners. But this is where Thomas can, unfortunately with the DRS, will lose time, but in that middle sector is certainly where he will start to gain more and more each lap, especially as the tyres wear off and the dirty air starts kicking a little bit more, that he could see himself, if he does a good strategy, back with this top 6 battle. But it's certainly going to be a hard ask, when all these guys at the front of the field aren't even squabbling amongst themselves.
They're just happily following along this train to just gap everyone behind. It's 5 seconds now. Thomas is sat behind. Not many battles going on now. We're just in DRS trains to sector 2. We have yellow flags. I think we've had a collision there. We've had a spin. Sport Mad. Fantastic work in quali. Fantastic work in the race so far. Unfortunately, spinning around and dropping quite a few places there through the Parabolicas. Not Parabolicas, the Lesmos. That's what I should say. As he's now trying to chase down the position. Ali getting through in towards Ascari. And it's straight through, but you're not really going to gain time. Monza, as we said for quali, it's the same in the race. It is all about the fine margins as you go through this lap. It is always going to be a short lap time. It's going to be the slow points of the track where you really gain time. But how about this? The DRS train kicking in, down in towards turn 1. Can Tadpole make a move happen on what is his teammates for the rest of the season? Don't get him angry now, Tadpole. Alpha managing to hold on to the position, but has another racing bull on the inside of him, trying to get through, trying to get past, heading towards the second chicane through the Primera Curva. And Curva Grande. I'm messing up the corner names. Usually I'm quite good at them, but my words are getting mixed up in my head.
That's all right, as we now see, of course, Alpha behind his teammate of Tadpole. It's a good move, actually, from Tadpole on to his teammates. As, of course, these guys are following Thomas through, and they're just going to be bleeding time throughout the lap. Of course, I did say that middle sector is where Thomas will gain ever so slightly. But that first and final sector, without the slipstream as well for the Aston Martin into the Parabolica, is just going to be where he's just hemorrhaging and bleeding time lap by lap. And that gap to last gen Newt will keep going bigger and bigger as Ben Mills comes into pit lane, but picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding. Ben Mills a bit too hot into the pits, and unfortunately has picked up that penalty to go with it. And that might just see his race-winning chances gone up in smoke before we even get to the half-race distance.
Yeah, considering how consistent the drivers behind have been to stay on his tail throughout this, it is going to come down to strategy. It's going to come down to, well, it's not the fine margins anymore with that 10-second time penalty. It's going to be the large ones. He's going to require some bad strategy from Thunderino and Luke Sawyer, Doherty, even his teammate Woolley and Last Gen New. All those top 5 runners are the players that he was driving up against originally. He's now going to have to hope for a little bit more Monza chaos to give him that opening to get back into things. As Jinko also receiving a time penalty, another 3 seconds added on to his race time. As it stands, we are only on lap 8, and we've already got the drama kicking off for this season. As slow but surely, at the top of the timing sheet, Thunderino and Luke Sawyer starting to get a small gap not only Josh Woolley, but Liam Doherty as well in P3 and 4.
Yeah, I did say a little bit earlier on, they were slowly starting to build a gap as Liam Doherty now coming into pit lane. Of course, Josh Woolley is a little bit further back as well from Doherty. He was starting to get into a little bit of no man's land, but has come into the pits to get off those medium compounded tyres as he'll go onto a set of the hards. Didn't do what Ben Mills did and take a 10-second time penalty with him. Of course, for the reigning champ, that's not going to do him a world of good when it comes to a potential championship battle later on down the line. But for Luke Sawyer, if he is going to be coming into the pit lane ever so shortly, you bet the lap he does, he'll try and get that move done, as Ben Mills just got in front there of Ali in the Red Bull. So he makes his way out of that first chicane, and Liam Doherty came out about 5 seconds behind. So that undercut does seem to be rather substantial here in the early laps of this Grand Prix.
We'll see how things go. It's really undermined what the undercut could have been for Ben Mills with that 10-second time penalty. That is not the way you want to start things off, but I did say earlier, if you can at least make your drop round still a good position in this race, it's going to take some recovery for Ben Mills, but still, if he's able to get something out of this, get up to P5, get up to P6, somewhere around there, saying your lowest position for the season was in the top 10 and possibly the top 5, that is good going as well. We're still following his teammate Josh Woolley, who also decides to go into the pit lane, almost sliding out of the pit lane and onto some grass on the side of the pit road. As he moves on to the pit lane, Williams ready to accept as Ben Mills on the hard tyres, setting a new fastest lap. That could end up being a very important point when we look at the entire season.
It certainly could do indeed, as Thunderania and Luke Sawyer, of course, do stay out on the circuit and they keep trundling around. Of course, lap 10 so far. I was expecting them to get these medium tyres to run about lap 11 to 12 against, of course, the ones of Ben Mills, but it's actually Luke Sawyer on the hard compounded tyre. So he's gone for that alternate strategy here, and that's a big difference, especially with the fact he was able to keep with Thunderino and of course Ben Mills. It's going to be super crucial that he doesn't lose too much time in this little phase we have in the race, with Ben Mills on those fresher hards and everybody else around him, of course, coming into pit lane ever so shortly, and he needs Ben Mills to get stuck into traffic like he just did with Ender Epic. So for Sawyer, he's going to be coming out on fresh medium compounded tyres. He should be able to rocket up to the back of the field, but he's got to make sure he don't lose too much time. And I think his real saving grace here as well is that he only really at the moment has to focus on Thunderino, because Ben Mills with that 10-second time penalty, that's really going to hurt him, and I don't see him being 10 seconds clear come the end of this race.
Another side of things with this team's championship as well, Luke Sawyer needs to get in Nedzo's head. Mate, I'm in P2 at the moment. I'm running against the champion. We're both on the alternate strategies as well, both on hard tyres. You need to let me know when you want to pit. Well, actually, considering his position, he's going to tell him, I'm going to pit this lap. You can wait. As we get later on this race, he will most likely take P1 off Thunderino at the moment, as we watch these two at the moment chase each other down. Luke Sawyer possibly looking for a chance to try and get through. Or simply, you know what? Just wait. He's got DRS. He's got time. He can use that to keep his hard tyres a little bit healthier. What do you think? Move on to the softs if he's able to tyre whisper these hards into later into the race? Or do you think just keeping the medium strategy, is that going to be the way to go? As again, Sector 2, the Lesmos providing a little bit of chaos as well. I think that's another Ferrari spun around. That is CT08 doing what his teammate Sportmad did earlier. Not a great weekend for the Tifosi in terms of BUSR, as both of them struggling at the moment around the Lesmos, as Last Gen Newt opting to pit on lap 12 as Nedzo moves up into P4. The two Mercedes getting quite close together, as Ali picking up 3-second time penalty. It's all going on in this set of the race. And I'll tell you what, Ben Mills with the 10-second time penalty is up into P5. He's been chasing down that top order of drivers to try and get into a better position when he takes that 10-second time penalty, or the other driver's pit.
He certainly is. He's really putting those hards to good use. But of course, Thunder Radio will be on a big tyre deficit as CTO8 now picks up a 10-second time penalty, unfortunately for him. Of course, Thunder Radio, he's got to have a roundabout. If he comes in now, a 4-lap tyre difference. That's quite huge, especially come the end of this race. That is a substantial tyre age difference, as that could really be the difference between winning and losing this race and keeping within that 10 seconds. Because, of course, at the moment, that's all Thunderinho and Luke Sawyer have to worry about if they're the driver in second, is keep within 10 seconds of Ben Mills. If you could do that, Kushti, you're going to go on and win this race. But you've got to look out for the car behind as well, as Thunderinho does now come into pit lane. So he has going to have around about a 4-5 lap tyre age difference compared to Ben Mills, and expect him to start rocketing up to the back of the Williams driver. And we'll see where he comes out as well in relation to Liam Doherty, who's heading down that main straight as Ender Epic comes into pit lane. I think Doherty might just jump Thunderinho here, and this could be absolutely crucial now for the race. And we could now see Liam Doherty potentially be the one to take the race victory. You do not know, as Willie also just able to jump Thunderinho. So he's dropped behind 2 drivers, but on those fresher tyres, you'd expect him to fight back quite quickly.
It could end up being a race about the strategy calls as opposed to getting the fastest laps around the Monza circuit. Temple of Speed becoming the Temple of Strategy, which is surprising considering it's the home of Ferrari and they're not exactly known for the best decisions when it comes to strategy. But at the moment, these drivers, could they be pulling out some worldies at the moment, as Ben Mills is currently chasing down Tadpole, trying to get up into P2 on track. So we are watching Josh and Thunderinho have their own little battle. Thunderinho looking to head down the inside, heading down towards Ascari. It's looked like almost a small touch from Wooly onto the back tyres of Thunderinho. It doesn't bother Thunderinho, but it did look like it unsettled Josh as he's down to P7. Thunderinho into P6. Ben Mills, in the meantime, overtaking Tadpole as Tadpole opts for the pit lane. And it looks like 2 Mercedes at the moment on track. I'm P1 and P3. There's again, some fights starting to develop up and down the grid, as Wooly is still within DRS of Thunderinho, will be looking to challenge him again and again for this circuit, around this circuit, and possibly take that position back. The man who just took it, just the past lap.
Yeah, he certainly has. Of course, that gap between Sawyer and Mills now is 11 seconds. So when Sawyer comes out of the pit lane, it'll probably be just behind potentially last gen Newts in all of this, because Thunderinho is really just attacking this circuit. He's trying to bring down that gap now to Liam Doherty. That gap now 3 seconds, just dropped to 2.9. He's found a 10th through that one Lesmo alone. He really is starting to hustle that Red Bull. CTO8 now takes that fastest lap point away from Ben Mills, so we will not see Ben Mills pick up that extra point at the very least here this evening, unless there is a late safety car and he's somehow able to magic up a lap out of nowhere. But Luke Sawyer now comes into pit lane, and this is absolutely crucial. He'll be coming in for some fresh medium compounder tyres, and he is going to be a man on a mission. We'll see where he comes out in relation as well to not only Thunderinho but last gen Newt as they make their way down that main straight. Thunderinho now takes the fastest lap of this Grand Prix, and Luke Sawyer, I think he's just going to be behind that kick salver by the time they reach turn 1. They're going to be side by side, I think, entering that first corner, and it is just going to be Sawyer who comes out on top, but by the barest of margins. He's timed that to absolute perfection if he now wants to hunt down Thunderinho, as Liam Doherty passes the Mercedes teammate of Nedso through Curva Grande.
And at the moment, it has to be said, I think Liam Doherty in pole position to win this race. Within 10 seconds to Ben Mills as it stands. The only thing that could really put a spanner in the works for either driver is going to be a safety car. What that could bring, the new strategy calls, as they all seem to be set on the standard or alternate strategy of going to medium hards or hards to mediums. Pick your poison, as they did at the start of the race. Those lap times being put in, it's still settling around the 7-second mark as Thunderino now also passing by the Mercedes, and that top three starting to form. Ben, Liam, and Thunderino, the ones that we sort of marked as the ones that could be taking home this championship come 8 weeks' time. As we watch Thunderino start the chase towards Liam Doherty and what could be one of the biggest fights of the season. At least it's going to be the biggest fight around the Monza circuit. Who will get that P2 and who will be at the front of the queue on track to be taking the win away from Ben Mills? Again, another Ferrari has spun around the Lesmos. It's got running again, so it's only yellow flags around those corners. There is going to be a McLaren passing by, but still Thunderino within DRS. What sort of fight are we going to have? They'll want to keep this as clean as possible for the sake of both of their races. As I think that is Ben Mills passing by, CT08 at the back of the pack. Good work from the blue flags to let them know as we head down towards Ascari. This was where Thunderino made a fantastic move against Josh. He makes it earlier here against Liam Doherty. Gets into the lead of what could be the race and what could be the championship as well. Heading down to Parabolica is Thunderino in P2. Liam Doherty down into P3.
Yeah, Doherty, I don't think he had much of a defence there without the DRS. As here comes a swap from the two Mercedes drivers, or it's a little bit clunky from both the cars. It means that Luke Sawyer gets a bit of a poorer run out of the Parabolica with a first retirement of the season. Into the pit lane comes CT08 after that spin at the second Lesmo. And unfortunately, he is our first retirement here in Monza and of the season. And now Luke Sawyer is going to be trying to charge down Josh Woolley in front. But of course, with Luke being on those mediums, he's going to surely be able to breeze up to the back of that Williams driver, and then it's going to be the Aston Martin, the Red Bull he needs to get by. But with only a 4-second window to Ben Mills in front as it currently stands of that 10-second time penalty, they can't really fight amongst themselves at this stage, can they? Because if they do, they'll end up just bleeding time, especially all throughout the lap, and if it's a very close, cool moment, they'll lose about a second in that one instance alone. But Thunderino is bringing that gap down, potentially could catch up to the back of Ben Mills come the end of this race. We still have 10 laps to go, of course, so we'll have to wait and see what happens as Luke Sawyer with the DRS all over the back of Woolley, and is he going to go for that move into the Ascari chicane?
Luke trying to chase down the other two drivers who are fighting for lead of the race and lead of the championship as well, heading down into another straight into the slipstream into Parabolica. The overtake I don't think will happen here. We're going to be looking at turn 1 for both these drivers to really start the battle. GM and Dexter both taking 3-second time penalties on top of their race time. There's another pit coming in. I think Liam Doherty opting for the pit lane. Ben Mills as well, looking to take the 10-second time penalty, as well as put on some new tyres. So the 2-stop strategy that I was thinking about earlier coming into force. I mean, for Ben Mills, it's another thing entirely. Might be looking to take this 10 seconds strategically. But Liam Doherty at the same time taking that pit stop as well. The gap's now 5 seconds between himself and Liam. What's going to be the reaction for the drivers up front? Are they going to stick around for the one stop, try and maintain the position on track? But by the end of the race, they're going to have some dying tyres. And will anyone else take a cue from those two drivers to take that extra stop, or are the next 9 laps of the race going to be a bit of a struggle for both Ben Mills and Liam Doherty on those new hard tyres? Opting for hards towards the end of the race. Not much time to bring them in.
Yeah, that's quite an odd choice, to be fair, because I only did 10 laps on those hards at that stage of the Grand Prix, and they're now going to be over a pit stop behind with only 9 laps to go. They're going to have to be finding at least 2 seconds a lap, really, if they want any chance of being able to catch up to Thunderino, because that gap between him and Josh Woolley is 4 seconds now. So I wouldn't expect Thunderino to come into pit lane, because it'll be well too late and it'll be undercut quite massively by both Ben Mills and Doherty. But now them two have got to really try and charge their way up through the order. I'm surprised they didn't go into another set of mediums as well. So it now really has changed the complexion of this race. And we could see a completely different podium to what we're expecting come 3 laps ago. As here comes Liam Doherty on Sport Man, who's trying to go for the move on Ali as well. There goes the Ferrari, but is the Aston Martin going to look to the inside? Yes, he is. 3 wide into the first corner. Somehow no contact made. Brilliant avoiding skills from Doherty to just lock the rears and make sure his front end of the car just turned in that little bit more than what he would have expected. And Doherty now to the outside of Ali through the Curva Grande and into the De La Rocha chicane we go now. Is he going to go late to the brakes against Sport Madge? Yes, he is. Locks up the front left and he's able to get through. And that's now 2 cars in between himself and Ben Mills. But that was absolutely close quarters racing. And Liam Doherty could have seen himself spinning around and out of any contention of a race victory at that point.
I thought that turn 1 incident was it. I'll be honest, I thought him taking a little bit too much of the curb, as well as possibly getting a little hit for his troubles, that could have been absolutely massive for the complexion of this race. It could have changed everything in terms of the laps. I think maybe if the proper collision there brings out a safety car and properly neutralizes that top 3 of Thunderino, Josh, and Luke. As it stands, and at the moment, Thunderino is just gapping Wooly 4 seconds ahead with 7 laps to go and not looking like he'll opt to take another pit stop like his fellow challengers for the title. Ben Mills getting past Ali, heading towards turn 1. We're looking to try and shut this gap between himself and Liam Doherty in P9. Both of them in the points at the moment, but both of them, I think, will be unhappy as it stands, considering that no other drivers are looking to even consider the extra pit stop that they have both taken.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for them now to charge their way up through the field. And I think that really was due to how early they came in. They committed to that 2-stop, whereas everybody else was able to just keep it onto their... Okay, well, go further into the race and be able to keep these hards till the end, or the mediums in the case of Luke Sawyer, who's already been able to get past Josh Woolley as fast as I was expecting him to. Maybe those mediums would just hit a cliff, and that might have just given Thunderino the upper hand to take this race victory. So that gap 4.5 seconds between him and the Williams, as Ben Mills all over the back of Liam Doherty as we head through that Ascari chicane and now down into Parabolic. We'll get a nice slipstream down into this next right-hander, and I'm expecting these two to work together to at least climb as high up the field as they possibly can. But I think it's been a real big miscalculation from the pair. I think they were expecting more drivers to do the 2-stop. They committed to it, and at that point, you just got to go with it, because they would have just fallen down the field and potentially been in puncture territory come the end, as there's Mills getting past Doherty. I think the best they're going to get is potentially a 5th place finish, but I don't even think they've got enough time to climb up to 8th, so a 9th and a 10th be extremely disappointing for the reigning champ and Liam Doherty, a newcomer looking to try and take that championship away.
And this is going to be fantastic for Thunderino. Not only did he manage to take the initial mediums, I think, a little bit further than any other driver on the circuit, so those hard tyres, they're going to be pretty healthy by the end of the race today. I don't think anyone's catching him as it stands. He's going to need a massive mistake for anyone to even be invited back into contention. It is going to be a battle between Luke and Woolley about who gets that P2 on the podium. Last Gen Newt has been gapped a little bit. He's holding steady at 1.3 seconds in terms of P4. Just outside the podium positions. I think he'll be quite satisfied by the end of the race. A 10-second gap between himself, as there had been an incident at Ascari as these drivers go around. There is a big yellow flag, and a Haas going slow has got moving again, so the prospect of a safety car is hanging quite low over the driver's head as Ben Mills flies through and past Liam Doherty to put in a fastest lap time. He currently sits in P9, but I think these two are currently working together. A bit of shake and bake to try and get as close as they can to the next driver in Tadpole, but that is still 4.5 seconds up the road. And after that, you still have to battle with another few drivers up to El Cone and P5 to even recover what would be an amazing recovery drive to get up into a good position after this race.
Yeah, it certainly will be, and Ben Mills, I think, will be hoping for a safety car at this stage. But so far, he's really closed that gap down to Tadpole, actually, so we could see him potentially fight for that 5th place. But Liam Doherty behind as well, be looking to try and get involved on the action too, as we're on lap 22 and 27. About to start lap 23, so certainly not many laps to go. About 5 to go here in the Grand Prix. If there's a late safety car, it will need to come now. But Ben Mills and Doherty really flying up to the back of Tadpole. They've found about a second this lap on the V car as we see Thomas get past Alpha to the inside of Parabolica. A lovely move there from the Aston Martin, but will now be on the back foot ever so slightly because that V car's going to have the slipstream and look to the inside into the first 2 corners. Who's going to come out on top in this squabble? Will it be Thomas or will it be Alpha? And it is going to be Alpha late on the brakes. Is the Aston Martin going to go for the up and under? A little slide from Alpha, but I don't think Thomas will be able to get the momentum, get the speed to go for a move into the De La Roche chicane. And it is the V car who comes out on top and holds on to that 6th place for now. But especially with Mills and Doherty slowly creeping forward to get involved, we could see this 4-car battle turn into a 6, and all the chaos will really start to unravel on these guys.
I think Dexter Morgan, getting another 10 seconds, decides to just call it quits on today in P19 with the extra penalties. Decides to pull into the pit lane, end the session early. It is a tough old gig being in lobby number 1, of course, with the BUSR. Been pretty popular with F1 this season. Managed to get 2 lobbies together, and having to step in last second with drivers pulling out, it is a very tricky thing to do. So well done both Dexter, CT08, starting off the season here, putting in, to be fair, some good lap time. CT08 definitely took the fastest lap time quite a few moments during this race, so definitely having the pace to keep up. I think not quite the luck at some points in the race, as we are entering the last few laps for Thunderino, and this could be just a simple walk in the park, a simple drive towards the end. 6.5 seconds in F1 esports and, well, F1 sim racing. That is a world away to try and make up for the rest of these drivers. Looking up and down the grid, we have Last Gen Newt and Luke Sawyer. They're going to be in a close battle towards the end of the race, as Josh has been closed up to 7 seconds between himself and P1, but it is only 0.8 of a second between himself and 3rd, as well as having Thomas, Alpha, El Cone, Tadpole, Ben, and Liam Doherty finally joining this battle as well. We do have that fight going on as well for more points paying positions. Who is going to take the chances? Who is going to get the fastest times around this track? It seems simple, but let's be honest, it's a temple of speed. Come on, it is going to be the fastest times that gets you up the order as Ben Mills gets away past Tadpole. That is 1 overtake passes. Previous laps, it seemed like Liam Doherty was going to start gapping Ben Mills as he managed to make the first overtake. Once they both did, Ben Mills got back into it as they both gained past Tadpole now. It seems like Ben Mills might be a little bit more comfortable in the fighting than Liam Doherty.
He may just be a bit more comfortable in that dirty air at the moment. Just seem to be that quicker car of the 2. As we now head down into that first chicane, who's going to come out on top now with between Thomas and Ben Mills. Of course, Thomas will want to do his teammate a solid and really be able to hold up that Williams driver, but with the sheer tyre age difference and the grip difference, you'll see it, the purchase of the tyre out of the corner, the amount of grip he's able to generate, even mid-corner, to be able to get the car rotated into the apex. He can brake so much later than Thomas. He'll be able to get past quite easily. Going to look for it into Lesmo 1? No, he will not. This will allow Liam Doherty to just gain a little bit more as we head through the 2 Lesmos and maybe give him the opportunity to attack as we now exit out of Lesmo 2, down, of course, into Ascari, underneath the old oval circuit that lies here at Monza. Are we going to see a move from Ben Mills to the inside? No, we are not. He's just going to sit behind once again, but you can just see how much more grip he has compared to that other Aston Martin. I say that, a huge wobble coming from Ben Mills, a big snap in the middle of the corner. Wouldn't be surprised if he touched one of the sausage curbs on the inside line, just spearing the car across the road. But that is a mistake coming the way of Ben Mills, and that's now put him into the grasps of Liam Doherty, as Luke Sawyer has actually come under threat from Last Gen Newt, who's got the move done, and those mediums really seem to have fallen off that cliff, and there he's going to be falling further and further back. Luckily for him, it's 10 seconds between him and El Cone.
That is the battle I had an eye on, as well as Ben Mills making the move past Thomas down into turn one. Can he hold it around the outside? Yes, he can. Get the traction down. Get past the Aston Martin, as it's now the two Aston Martins together. Go on, Liam. Tell your driver that Liam is faster than you. Get out the way. I've got a fight with Ben Mills as it continues to go on, as out wide through the chicane. And somehow Thomas has managed to get back through. I think banging on the back tires as well. The fight continues through the Lesmos. Sawyer past to Josh Woolley. I think there's been a mistake from Woolley. As another spin. And out it goes. One Aston Martin driver. I think, unfortunately, that is Thomas. Had a good fight, some good defense from Ben Mills, but that's just a mistake coming in from, I think, Ben, to be fair. Gets the spin, pushed out the way. Liam Doherty, I think, will finally get through and get out of the way, escape away from everyone else, as Thunderino is on the last lap. It is lap 27. And it's going to be a procession for him, but the fights going on behind have been epic. Last Gen New in P2, Luke Sawyer in P3, but I think that's our podium almost completely set. As Thunderino, let's switch to him. It has been a fantastic Monza race. I think just as chaotic as we thought it would be through the De La Rosa chicane, as that is a very slow Mercedes going through turn one. That's quite dangerous for all the drivers having to get through. More battles going on as Tadpole taking the fastest lap. Come on. It is going to be a round of applause for this man heading into Ascari. He came into BUSR saying that he was going to be the fastest. He was proving he was going to be the fastest. In quali, it didn't go his way. Of course, went to Luke Sawyer with a 3-second time penalty. It went to Ben Mills, the championship last time, who had a fantastic summer. But at the moment, it is some of the new breed. The new drivers coming in. Grazie, ragazzi, says Thunderino. As a hand goes out to the crowd. It is not a Ferrari. It is a Red Bull that takes the crown around Monza. Last Gen Newt will come through for P2 as Josh Woolley will find a way to get into P3. I think I've missed that battle completely as he's managed to recover through. And that is your podium. But Thunderino, we talk about stamps of authority on the rest of the season. That is one hell of a one.
It certainly is. Thunderino showing exactly what he is made of here in the opening round of the season. And that is certainly a champion's drive to kick things off, as Ben Mills is actually able to get back past Liam Doherty by a tenth of a second by the time we got to the line. That's 6th and 7th for them, as Alpha finished off 5th with Elko in 4th. And I think Luke Sawyer got a puncture on that final lap because he's gone really slowly throughout the whole... Oh, and into the wall. Yeah, definitely a rear puncture there for Luke Sawyer. And unfortunately for him, a hard-earned race has come to the end there. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some contact between Woolley and Last Gen New, or potentially with a back marker, because of course we saw that mistake from Josh Woolley at one stage. So yeah, Thunderino takes the opening round of the season. And that's exactly how he would want to kickstart his campaign.
I'm sure there might be plenty for the stewards to look over that we unfortunately missed out as we were celebrating this man. Thunderino, a sea of red below, where it is going to be the Williams white, green and black of the stake Sauber, and the blue of the Red Bull that makes up the podium around the Monza circuit. Look at that. It's just a sea of red. I would love to be there in real life, but not just yet. These drivers, what a start to the season. All the drama around Monza we were expecting, and it all delivered.
Certainly all did. Plenty of drama throughout the field. And I think here as well, Ben Mills and Liam Doherty are really going to be looking at what could have been a missed opportunity at some good points. Yes, they finished in P7 and P6, but it could have been so much more. It could have potentially been a podium for the both of them. That two-stop strategy just did not work. They gambled on it. They gambled on more drivers taking it, but they just didn't. And that was their ultimate undoing. So for the pair of them, they're going to be going back to the drawing board and potentially be looking at doing the normal, I wouldn't say normal strategy, but the average strategy you see around some of these tracks, and potentially just maybe taking those risks a little less further down the line.
I mean, with a 25% distance race, there is not really enough time for for that much. I said we had a dramatic race, but we didn't have enough time for the dramatics to fully take place. I think you had 100% race. Maybe that two-stop strategy you would have had enough time and enough laps to properly have the tires rubber in and get those lap times in to be able to have the battles that they did. But unfortunately, with a 50% race, it does cut your time short to try and make those strategy calls matter. I think a two-stop strategy could have worked with a 100% race or a 75% distance race because they were gaining. They were getting back into the contest, but maybe then, even then, maybe more drivers would have taken the two-stop with a longer race distance. So maybe that point is null and void in itself. But I mean, fantastic from Thunderino. Very calm, very relaxed. We did have that undercut that really put pressure on his entire race. I think if Ben Mills didn't have that 10-second time penalty, maybe that would have been the battle that we had on the podium. But instead, stayed calm, got the consistency that we were talking about for the season overall, got it into this Monza race, and just ran away from the rest of the grid. Props to Last Gen New and Josh as well. There were mistakes up front. They managed to make the most of it, and that's what you need to do for the rest of this season. When there's a mistake in front of you, punish it. You don't just let that happen and let it slide. You have to make sure that every single time you are given that opportunity, you make it count across this season.
You certainly do. You've got to take that opportunity when it arises. And that's exactly what they did. It's exactly what Thunderino did as well. Doherty, Mills, they made those mistakes with strategy, and he capitalised on it to a T. He was there, ready, and just absolutely dominated the competition once Mills was out the equation. And that's exactly what you need to do. You're a creator of your own luck in some sense, and also you need to be the one that makes that luck. You need to be the one that capitalizes on opportunities that may not arise again throughout the season. You never know. Mills might not make a mistake like that, and that could be the thing that costs him later down the line. It could just be this one race, that one wrong strategical decision, and it might cost him. And Thunderino's capitalized on that, and that's the difference between winning and losing a championship. So it's all about whenever you see that opportunity, whenever that door is slightly ajar, you barge through it with intent. And you got to make sure you make your rivals pay, or you're not going to be able to win a championship that way.
Well, the stage is set for the rest of the season, but it'll be amiss of us not to have a talk to a few of the actors that played a part in it. We'll start off with Josh Woolley, who's joining us, the Overlord himself, joining us in the interview room as well. Josh, an interesting race. It looked like it was tricky after qualifying, but all of a sudden, towards the end, you looked like you were losing time, and then suddenly up to P3.
Yeah, that was a race, let's say. Qualifying was a bit of a pain. I hit every curve imaginable, so lost a good lap. Hopefully would have been on the front row, but we move on. Turn 1, I somehow was 3 wide. Don't entirely know how that happened. Managed to work my way back up through a very, very sketchy one stop, which left me on puncture territory with 5 to go. Then my wheelbase disconnected with 2 to go, and I was stuck in 5th gear. And then I got a puncture on the final lap. So I have absolutely no idea how I came 3rd, to be honest.
Well, I think Luke had a little bit of trouble as well with the puncture towards the end there. It's just you managed to survive the race itself. Just take me through the strategy calls involved there. We were just talking about it before of both Ben and Luke deciding to try and attempt the 2-stop. It didn't really work for them. Was there anything that Ben told you to sort of go, no, dude, this is not worth it. Stay out. Keep your position on the podium, because let's be honest, that Williams team is stacked. I don't know how you actually no, I do know how you've got the Overlord title, but you must have a little bit of a team talk as well going on. What sort of strategy calls like during that race?
Initially, I was on the 2-stop, boxed on lap 9 because the mediums were awful, and then I sort of just stayed out. And it was only when I caught Nedzo, I think it was on lap 18 or something, and suddenly I coined the hold up. If he's boxing and then I'm boxing on a 2-stop, then I'm at the back. Nedso. And so when I've got to go for the Hail Mary, I've got to stay out. Ben was off in another voice chat with the rest of the top three. But yeah, it just a sort of a Hail Mary because I knew I was shafted otherwise, and just praying that I didn't end up with a puncture with 2 to go instead of 1 to go.
Yeah, it was certainly just overall quite a crazy race there for you, Josh. And as you say, it was a Hail Mary near the end. And just how difficult was it in those closing few laps? Of course, dealing with that high tyre wear and just trying to get it to the line. Of course, having Newt as well behind you that was charging you down and just really applying that pressure as much as he possibly could. Just how difficult were those last, say, 4 or 5 laps?
I need a shower, essentially, is how difficult it was. Yeah, the tyre wear was awful. I was avoiding every curb, which at Monza with 3 chicanes where you have to hit the curbs as hard as you can wasn't fun. And then it was just praying that the tyre wear didn't kill me. Out of Parabolica was interesting on the final lap as I'm kind of crabbing with only 3 wheels on my wagon, but very, very difficult. And I'm glad it's over.
Well, congratulations, Josh. That is a big P3 in terms of the rest of the season. That's the great way to start. And for your sake, long may it continue.
Cheers.
And next up, P2, Last Gen Newt taking center stage. Newt, that was quite some race that you managed to turn around into a P2. You started off that in sort of that train to begin with that rest of the top 6. I asked Josh the same question, so I want to get into your head as well. What was the strategy call like? Because we saw both Ben and Liam take a very different strategy. What were your thoughts going into this race about the 2-stop versus the 1-stop?
I knew the 1-stop was going to be quicker if it was actually possible to take the tyres long enough. And because I was sat in that train for so long, I wasn't using the tyres at all, so I was able to take them a lot longer than I usually would be able to. And as soon as I got to lap 11 on the mediums, I knew that the 1-stop was possible, because 16 laps on the hards isn't too difficult. So yeah, I was quite shocked that Ben went for the 2-stop, but I've heard that his tyre wear was much higher than ours, so yeah, it definitely was not the strategy that I would have gone for.
Yeah, it was certainly the 1-stop being the one that looked like the strategy to be on. I think Mills, Doherty, and all that gambled on that strategy, but I mean, you picked up the pieces when others faltered, and of course, seeing the 2 around you get a puncture in those last few laps, was it just a case of I'm now pretty much set for this 2nd place, so just bring the car home and make sure I don't pick up any track limit warnings or make a silly mistake on that final lap?
Yeah, as soon as I caught up to Luke, I knew that I was going to be able to get him, because his tyres had fallen off massively. He was struggling in every corner. And then obviously Josh had his wheelbase issue, and I think I actually didn't know that Luke got a puncture until after the race ended, but the tyre wear for me at the end wasn't too bad, so I wasn't really in danger of getting a puncture at all. So after I got back past both of them and I had like a 6-second gap behind me, I just didn't push on the final lap at all because I didn't want to make any mistakes.
And lastly, you're walking around with the F2 champion tag. You've got P2 in the opening race. How are you rating your championship chances? This is a great sort of foundation to begin your season. But looking ahead, you've got a tall challenge in Chris's. You've had one bad race from Ben. You've had some good challenges from Josh behind you in this race. How are you feeling with the next 7 races to come?
Yes, it's definitely a good start. I think I'm going to know whether I'm in the championship fight probably around the mid-season. But until then, I'm just going to take every race separately and try to do the best job that I can in each of them and not try to worry about it too much, because that's when mistakes start to happen, and I'd rather just try to be as consistent as possible.
One step at a time. Congratulations, Nuke. P2 around Monza.
Thank you.
Fantastic start to the season for him. But of course, we do have to talk to the main character, the guy who started the season in pole position to take the championship. Is Chris's to join us next. Chris's, I think
Hello.
you've come to this season reasonably nicely, I think, after that race. And it has been the question, I think, on everyone's mind that I've asked the two other podium sitters as well. One stop versus two stop. Were you confused by Ben taking it? I believe you were in a voice call with him, with the rest of the top three at the start of the race, sort of going through everything. So what was the strategy calls in your mind? What was the right decision?
I wasn't surprised with Ben pitting because surprisingly he had very bad wear. He was on 10% more wear than me when he boxed. So I had a league race here yesterday, so I took that as kind of a practice on what to do and what not to do. I tried the one stop there. It was clearly better. So I tried it again. The VSC did help. But I stayed out one lap too late. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I had a puncture on the mediums in Ascari, which was not nice. But thankfully, there were only 2 straights left, so I didn't really lose much time. And after that, it was plain sailing, to be honest. Like, I was just keeping after my tires and just watch the chaos unfold behind me.
Yeah, I mean, well done, of course, for the race victory, Chris's. But when it came after that pit window, except from, of course, trying to catch back up to Ben Mills, well, of course, at the time you knew it was a 2-stop, you didn't really have much to worry about. Was it just a case of try and build a decent margin to the cars behind? So say if you did pick up a track limit warning, you can have that safety net? Or was it just full push till the end and just take it as it comes, and if you pick up a 3 second, you pick up a 3 second?
No, the only concern I had, it was I came up behind Josh, so I wanted to clear him and gap him because I knew he was going to try the one. And after I built the gap, I just managed. I didn't get any track limit warnings, so it was I could have that buffer if I wanted to push a bit. But yeah, I went with I was worried about Ben, but obviously he had the 10 seconds, so I could also relax on that. And yeah, after that, Luke was also stuck behind Josh with the mediums, which obviously blew up on the final lap as well. So in general, it was a pretty calm and collected race.
You sort of got a chance to take a look at, I guess, the BUSR contingent of championship contenders that you now have to start defending from for the next 7 races. You've got the foundation. Who are you expecting to be the one to be taking you all the way to the final race of the season?
Well, I haven't been here long. Obviously, it's my debut race, but I know that Josh is very fast. Ben is obviously previous world champion. Luke today showed promising pace. But I'm still figuring things out. They could have off weekends. I can have an off race and look like I'm not that quick. So I need to see a few more races, how everyone does. But if we're talking about today, I'm expecting Josh, Ben, and because he's the only one I know, I would also say Liam, but he was kind of off the pace today. So yeah, 1-0 to me.
Already got the scores on the doors.
Obviously.
All got the FZR tags on, so it's gonna be a little bit of a civil war between you guys. But congratulations, a fantastic start to the season for yourself. Look forward to more displays of driving excellence from you as the season goes on.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
There we go. Monza, our trip to the Temple of Speed wrapped up. But from one long straight, we go to another, as it is Mexico next week. Is it now the second longest straight on the F1 calendar? Las Vegas, I think, has taken that.
No, I think it's the third. I think it's just behind Baku as well.
Oh, of course, Baku as well. Yeah, but it's a very similar track in terms of some sections. But I think there's far more slow speed corners that you need to get right. It's a longer lap time as well. So we're talking about slightly less of the precision, but of course, every driver is still going to be hunting for pole position and the extra 2 points that comes with it.
Yeah, they certainly are. Mexico's, I wouldn't say completely different challenge to Monza, but of course, you do have that lot more of a technical aspect to the circuit. You have that long main straight. It's a bit like Monza in the sense of you have the first 3 corners into another long straight, and then that's when it starts to get very technical indeed, heading through that middle sector and into the stadium section as well. A unique selling point of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, but it's going to be an interesting race because, of course, it's difficult to follow on this game at the best of times. Overheating's a big issue at Mexico as well. The tyre temps and also the engine temps do get very high. So it could be very much all about that qualifying. If you get a poor qualifying position, you're not going to make your way up the field as much, and it's going to be a difficult one. I am expecting a 2-stop there, some potentially on a 1, some on a 2, because it is very, very close in terms of overall time on both strategies. So it's going to be all down to driver preference in that one. And it's just going to be an amazing race because Mexico always delivers, especially with a tyre deficit. You can see drivers find 2-3 seconds a lap on the cars around them just due to how many technical corners there are.
That is all to come next week. Unfortunately, it's an off week for me. I'll be away, but Mexico is sure to deliver. So make sure you tune in next Saturday for qualifying and the race around the Mexican circuit. That's all from me, RW Dragon, joined by Max on commentary. The USR continues next week.
And no moment in history where I could stand and say, British begins here, now.